breaking news. A Russian mercenary chief with thousands of troops ordering an armed rebellion and march on Moscow, only to abruptly call it off. Yevgeny Prigozhin of the Wagner Group saying he halted the march to avoid shedding Russian blood. An extraordinary day of events and chaos. This dramatic video circulating online showing a Russian helicopter narrowly avoiding a missile strike. Black smoke filling the air after a massive explosion at a Russian oil depot. And stunning images of a convoy of tanks and military vehicles making their way toward Moscow. Earlier today, an angry Vladimir Putin vowing to crush the rebellion in a televised address to the nation, calling it treason and a stab in the back. President Biden monitoring developments, reaching out to European allies. And late today, word of a deal to drop criminal charges and de-escalate tensions. We have team coverage tonight, and ABC's chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell leading us off from Ukraine.
Extraordinary scenes unfolding today in Russia after what appeared to be a serious rebellion against Vladimir Putin, and an armed march on Moscow was suddenly halted. Russian state TV leading with what it called an attempted mutiny by the head of the Wagner paramilitary group, Yevgeny Prigozhin. Prigozhin, a former close ally of Putin, marching his army of mercenaries in a takeover of defense and intelligence security buildings in Rostov-on-Don, a key Russian military hub near Ukraine. After seizing control, he ordered his tanks and military vehicles to then head north towards Moscow.
Mama!
A major oil depot exploding on the outskirts of Voronezh as Wagner troops advanced through. Videos showing military helicopters being fired on by Wagner forces. And on the city's outskirts, miles-long columns of military vehicles along the highway. Videos obtained by Reuters appearing to show impromptu roadblocks in the Voronezh and Lipetsk regions to slow the rebel advance towards Moscow.
За наш суверенитет и независимость.
An angry Vladimir Putin addressing the Russian people today, saying he'd been stabbed in the back, warning of civil war, but not mentioning Prigozhin by name. The FSB intelligence agency opening a criminal case against him. And Prigozhin's advance triggering panic in Russia. But then tonight, as his troops were less than 200 miles from Moscow, he announced a halt, saying he wanted to avoid bloodshed. The Kremlin claiming Prigozhin's change of heart was negotiated by Putin's ally, Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko. Then, criminal charges against Prigozhin abruptly dropped.
It's the first time that Putin's control in decades has been challenged. So his control, the facade of control, has been weakened, which in turn will weaken his control of his regime.
Prigozhin and his men have been accused of a string of war crimes, allying themselves with groups involved in the conflicts in Libya and Syria. When he brought his troops to eastern Ukraine, they played a key role in the brutal siege and ultimate Russian victory in Bakhmut, leaving the city in ruins. Recruiting thousands of convicts from Russian prisons to fight. Today, Ukrainian troops appearing to try to seize on the disarray, pressing occupying Russian forces in the south and east of the country. President Zelensky's spokesman, Mikhailo Podolyak, sitting down to discuss the dramatic events in Russia.
Given what we've seen happening in Russia, do you believe we're now at the beginning of the end of the war in Ukraine?
Podolyak telling me, without a doubt, it's the beginning of the end. But the problem is this end can last for quite some time. Tonight, Wagner fighters seen celebrating as they pulled out of Rostov. Prigozhin cheered like a conquering hero. But Russians left trying to understand what just happened, and Ukrainians what this means for the war.
And let's get right to Ian Pannell joining us now from Kharkiv. Ian, an extraordinary chain of events today. What more are you learning about this deal, and what concessions may have been made with Prigozhin?
Well, I think, first of all, Putin certainly looks bruised and weakened by the last 24 hours. We still don't know what kind of a deal, if any, was made to persuade Prigozhin to back down. But it certainly exposed the Russian president as vulnerable and his forces as largely incapable of protecting their own backyard. Tonight, Prigozhin is going into exile in neighbouring Belarus with an amnesty for him and his men. It remains to be seen if that will be honoured. But we likely haven't heard the last of him. Whit?
All right, Ian, thank you.